This council meeting is being convened by electronic means as authorized under Part 14 of the procedure bylaw. The City of Vancouver electronic meetings. As such, council members and the public may participate in person or by electronic means. If a council member attending by electronic means loses connection during the voting process, team members are available to get you back online quickly while the voting process is suspended. Is anyone tapping in online, or are we still all here? I'll read it anyways. The team members' contact information has been circulated to you. Video of council members speaking, presentations, and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. Council members participating virtually are reminded that, in accordance with Section 14 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. Any council member whose video is disabled will be marked absent for the portion of the meeting. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube link, which will be tweeted out by @VanCityClerk. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and we thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. I also do want to recognize the amazing contributions of all of our City of Vancouver team members who work hard each and every day to make our place more incredible and an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Sim is in the chair. Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague. Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner. And Councillor Jo. The hearing has quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you. Before we begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate by phone, speaking in person, or submitting written comments to council. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on Twitter @VanCityClerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online web form at vancouver.ca/public-hearing-comments. This link will also be tweeted. Those speaking on behalf of persons or groups of 3 or more will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented are also on the line or in person and must not be speakers themselves. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. I remind council that when addressing speakers and team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. A reminder that council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means council is to only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from team members, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, council may approve the application in principle, refuse the application, or refer the application to team members for further consideration. Okay, so the first item on the docket is CD-1 rezoning, 1063 to 1075 Barclay Street. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 1? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by IBAI Architects to rezone 1063 to 107 Barclay Street from residential district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 47-story residential building with 87 social housing units and 285 strata titled residential units. A building height of 456.7 feet and a floor space ratio of 19.10 are proposed. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing. 2 pieces of correspondence in support, and 4 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Additional speakers will have an opportunity to speak by phone or in person at the end of the registered speakers list. We do have Teen Fun, Senior Rezoning Planner, Rezoning Center, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Hi there. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Teen Fan, Senior Rezoning Planner, here to present this application in the West End proposing social housing and strata housing. Just confirming the public screen is okay. Great. Thank you. The properties are located on the northeast corner of Thurlow and Barclay Streets, shown here in red in the West End. The area is very well served by local amenities and services, and that would include everything from nearby bikeways to nearby parks, adjacency to the SkyTrain stations, as well as community facilities, including the Gordon Neighborhood House. If we zoom in just a little bit closer, we can see that there are 3 properties on the existing, three developments on the existing site. And it's in an area that is actually experiencing quite a lot of change for new development that is proposing up to 550 feet. At the time of application, there were 36 tenancies, of which 6 are eligible for tenant protection. The remainder are either previous owner occupied or they don't qualify as their length of tenancy does not meet the city's requirement. The application before you is subject to 3 different rezoning policies, and I'll go through each of them in turn. First, we have the West End Community Plan, and that was adopted in 2013, and that guides change in the West End over the next 30 years. It identified villages, neighborhoods, and corridors, and it established height limits, especially in the Burrard and the Georgia corridor, for which additional heights and density are permitted along the perimeters of the West End. Second, we have the accompanying rezoning policy, and that further reinforces the West End plan. Specifically, rezoning can be considered an Area D if 25% of the total floor area is dedicated to social housing. Forms are also managed by tower thicknesses as well as maximum and minimum frontages. Finally, we have the higher building policy, and that applies to areas here shown in the colored boxes with maximum heights listed in black. Buildings in the area are permitted to enter into the Queen Elizabeth View Cone if a number of criteria are met. And that would include demonstrating architectural creativity in the downtown area, providing significant community benefits, and advancing the city's sustainability goals, all the while maintaining sunlight onto streets, parks, and open spaces. The proposal before you meets these policy criteria. It's for a 47-story residential building, and it contains 87 units of social housing and 285 units of strata housing. The total floor area is 330,000 square feet, and the height is just over 456 feet, and that generates a total floor space ratio of 19.1. Underground parking is accessed from the rear lane. The application was originally received by staff in June of 2020, and it's actually subject to a negotiated community amenity contribution. Since then, staff and the applicant team have worked very closely to determine an appropriate CAC. So just for council's information, these negotiations, typically for high-density buildings, take a while to resolve. And during these discussions, actually this past summer, it was determined that additional social housing could be accommodated on the site. The applicant then submitted an addendum to their application proposing to replace one level of strata housing with one full level of social housing, representing a total floor area of 27%, and that exceeds the 25% requirement. So in regards to height, the policy permits intrusion into the Queen Elizabeth view cone, for which this building does. Simultaneously, the building is significantly terraced at the top, and that creates an angle for the building, and that allows sunlight to penetrate onto Robson Street. So the height and the sculpting both maintain this important sunlight access onto a commercial and regional shopping node, which is Robson Street, and that forms a significant spine of Robson Village. In terms of design and green features, there are a series of curvilinear balconies that are woven throughout the building, and this adds to the architectural creativity of the building. The profile and the volume of the building is also quite slender, and it tapers on the ground floor, animating the open spaces to create strong pedestrian connections. The plazas and the entrances are also marked with new trees, an urban forest, a moss garden, as well as a shared children's outdoor play space. This creates a dense green buffer to soften the building edges. These improvements contribute to a network of interconnected open spaces and green spaces as expected in the plan and the policy. Staff received 47 comments from the public during the consultation period, and that included support for affordable housing, for building design, as well as support for that increased height and density. General themes of concern centered around the perception that there was insufficient social housing to meet the West End targets, the height, density, and shadows being too high and inappropriate for the surrounding context, as well as concern about parking and traffic. Shown here, this slide represents the total value of public benefits being generated from this proposal, and that's just over $67.5 million. The bulk of that is the social housing portion, which is being delivered on site. 87 units approximately of social housing, and the remainder is for the development cost levy and the public art contribution. The staff recommend support given the height, density, and the use all align with the policy, and it also adds social housing, which advances council's mandate to deliver more affordable housing. That does conclude the staff presentation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Teen. Now, is the applicant team here to speak on the application?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jeff Christensen. I'm with the IBI Group. We are going to waive our presentation, but we have an extensive team here in the chambers and also online to answer any questions from council.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to the team? And it looks like there are. Councillor Boyle, we're up.
Thanks. I don't know that I'll need it, but can I just get my timer back to 0? Thank you. My questions are actually for city staff. So just 2 questions, I think. The first is, can you just repeat what you said about the current tenants on the site?
Sure. Yep. Thanks, Councillor Boyle. We have 36 tenancies at the time of application, so when it was submitted in June of 2020. A number of them are previously owner-occupied, and a number of them don't meet the city's requirements in terms of length of tenancy. That is required if we are to apply the tenant protection policy.
So do you know how many do qualify under the TRPP?
We believe it's 6.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
And-
always, sorry,
Go ahead.
it's always finalized at a later stage to be
Okay.
absolutely certain.
You said some of them are previously owner occupied, so this is a strata building currently, not a secure market rental?
It was originally built as a strata, correct. And part of one of the conditions that we have is that they complete their strata wind up and they dissolve that strata prior to enactment.
Okay, Great. My other question is, I know for this type of social housing, the 87 units here, we typically cross-subsidize, and that sets the affordability levels. I guess I'm wondering, given the commitments we've heard from this current provincial government around providing housing for folks who are homeless, if you think this is a building where we might be able to secure help from the provincial government to deepen the affordability level of those units?
Great, thanks. I'll redirect that question over to Dan Garrison.
Sure. Thanks, Dan Garrison.
Thank you, Councillor. Dan Garrison, Housing Policy and Regulation. Certainly, as we get to the next, the sort of process way it works is we're securing the delivery of an asset here tonight. Once that's done, our team in ACCS, in non-market housing and development and operations, will do an RFP process for a nonprofit operator. At that point, we usually work with that nonprofit to look at any way we can to deepen levels of affordability. So I think there is an opportunity. Oftentimes, the nonprofit will secure low-cost financing from either BC Housing or CMHC, but there is also an opportunity for funding as well, particularly if we're housing people who are at the lower income levels.
Okay.
And we have seen this in a couple of projects that we've done, inclusionary projects in the West End, like the one that is now operated by Vancouver Native Housing Society on Davie Street.
Okay, that comes later, and that's a conversation the city takes on with the operator in BC Housing?
Yeah, that's right. And the approval for that part of the process will also come back to council at a later date.
Okay, great. Those are all of my questions. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. I do want to note that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Carr, you're up.
Thank you. Luckily, I have a question for the applicant.
There you go.
Yes, thanks. Thanks very much for being here. And I note in the report that it talks about in terms of the green building policy, that there's significant enhancement. I'm just reading from our staff report to the passive design, reducing carbon emissions by an additional 50% beyond our policy, resulting in a nearly zero emissions building. How have you achieved that?
I'd like to direct that question towards our energy modeler from Morrison Hirschfield. I think Ali is on the line.
Yeah. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yep.
Hi. Yeah. So, a great question, and thank you, Council. The plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the building is by inclusion of majorly heat pumps, basically the main source of heating in the building on the
Excuse me,
side.
it's a little hard.
Sorry?
We can't hear you, speaker. Is there a way of turning up the volume? So I'm just going to stop the timer here. Yeah. And sorry, speaker, if you have the opportunity to speak closer into the mic, that might be helpful.
Sure. And can you hear me now?
Everyone hear him? All right. Why don't we try it? And I'll give you a little bit extra time if you need it. Thank you.
Sure.
Councillor Carr? Oh, sorry, speaker. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so to answer the question, the plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and being in line with the targets of the city and the stringent targets of higher building policy is...
Sorry, speaker, I'm having a hard time. I don't know if it's just me. I'm losing my hearing. Would you be able to get very close to the mic? And we'll try this one more time, please.
Sure.
Okay, let's try that again.
Yeah, so by inclusion of air source heat pumps in the building as the main source of heating and inclusion of heat pumps for domestic hot water, the plan is fully electrifying the building to pretty much eliminate use of natural gas and be in line with the targets of the city. and the province in terms of meeting greenhouse gas emission targets. Also, given the stringent targets in the building, the design is effectively at passive house level. This includes the design on the envelope side, inclusion of high performance opaque and high performance glazing in the building.
Great, okay. Those are, yep, measures, that's good. But I think I went really over time.
You know what, we had some technical issues there, so we'll.
Maybe more, because I do have some other questions. That's fine, thank you. I have some questions for staff. To staff, the corridor, Thurlow and Burrard are intended in the West End plan to be rental. This is strata, although, so can you please explain why that decision was made to allow it?
Certainly, thanks, Councillor Carr, for that question. The Burrard corridor, for which this application is in, allows for strata as well as social. So you have that option under the rezoning policy. We did put in place an interim rezoning policy for the Burrard corridor in 2020, I believe it was, to allow the applicant to select whether they wanted to do social plus strata or 100% rental. And some applicants, about 7 of them in the Burrard corridor, have selected that option.
Right.
So it's really up to the applicant under the policy.
Right. Good. Thank you for reiterating that. I think it's important for the public to know those, especially who worked on the plan.
Absolutely.
Second question, the cost of housing, if my calculations are correct, are about 59,400,000 or so. And if you divide it by the number of units, I get to something like $678,000 or so per unit. Can you tell me, the plan itself anticipated potentially using CACs rather than in-house or in kind to use that money to purchase sites and build. Is this the most effective way to achieve the most number of units?
Sure. Thanks, Councillor Carr. For this part of the Burrard corridor, you're right. In the Georgia corridor, we allow extraction of CACs to be cash. So we don't require them to be delivered on-site as amenities. On the flip side, the Burrard corridor, specifically sub-area D, seeks to find opportunities for sites to deliver that on-site benefit. I don't know, Dan, did you want to expand?
Hi, thank you, Councillor Dan Garrison, Housing Policy. So your math is about right in terms of the benefit here of the cost for delivery of the social housing on site at about $59 million, or at 87 units, that'd be about $680,000 a unit. We do have a condition in the report to look at increasing the number of units, but regardless, it is still, would still be, depending, if you say we increased it to 95 units, we'd be at about $625,000 a unit. We understand that's a significant cost. However, if you look at all of our options for how to deliver non-market housing in high-value, high-cost locations, including this being one of the higher cost, higher value locations, the inclusionary approach is actually a cost-effective approach because we don't have to pay for land. So if you were to look at this from a perspective of acquiring a piece of land and then building affordable housing on it, we would still have costs approaching, probably not quite that high, but approaching that cost for construction. Plus, we'd be paying maybe as much as $400,000 per unit for the land cost. So we'd be looking at $900,000 a unit if we were having to do it in another method that involved acquisition of land. So in high cost locations like this one, that's one of the reasons why we think the inclusionary model is a cost effective way to deliver it, even though we acknowledge the cost of doing so is significant.
Dan, one last question. Is it unusual to have so many units of 2-bedroom and even 3-bedroom in terms of the delivery of the social housing?
Yes, it is, and in our standard, our housing design technical guidelines call for 50% family units. In this case, we actually had the applicant design a building and offer a higher proportion of family units at about 79%. We're asking them through design development to reduce it to about 70% just to get an efficient unit yield for operations, but still this is a very high level of family housing provision in the non-market housing. We consider that to be really valuable because if we have to finance and build a project, it's very difficult to build that much family-oriented housing. So this is a good opportunity to do that. So Yeah, it is higher than our usual standard.
And we're probably way over time, but we did have some technical glitches, so we added a couple of minutes to the clock there. Just a reminder, because this is a public hearing, councillors, you do have 5 minutes for questions. So Councillor Klassen, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sam. To the applicant, I just want to first of all thank you well, congratulate you, I should say, for getting to this stage. It's looks like an absolutely beautiful building, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm just as part of my own learning process here. When did this project actually come to the city first, and when do you realistically anticipate occupancy?
I think the rezoning application was June 2020. And I'm not sure when we'll be proceeding with the development permit, but perhaps I can get our client to comment on that. I'm not sure when it's going to start construction. Do you have an approximate? Anticipated completion of the construction in about 5 years from now. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. Question through you to staff. It's just around the subject of parking in this building. I think I read 10 levels of parking correctly, and I recognize there's quite a substantive number of units, both in the strata and social. But is this level of parking in line with our regulations? Was there consideration to less parking in light of it being in the downtown core and the accessibility to public transit and people walking to work and so on? If you could just comment on that.
Thanks, Councillor Dominato. Entirely so. We did consider all of those factors. It's 372 total units, and I think the parking currently proposed is just about 350. So it's not yet one parking spot per unit, though we are absolutely at the development permit stage, allowing the applicant to come in with opportunities to reduce that in terms of the number of car spaces in lieu of more public transportation options or more sustainable options. The 10 levels does seem like a lot. It's the building footprint and the site footprint is quite small. And so they have no ability to maybe go this way. They have to kind of go under. But yeah, it's absolutely something that we can explore further in terms of reduction. Rosemary, are you on the line and did you have anything to add to that? Our transportation engineer.
Thanks, team. Councillor Dominato, it's Rosemary Draskovic, Senior Transportation Engineer. I'll echo basically what Teen has already mentioned. They are, I guess one of your questions, they are very much, in fact, meeting the minimum requirements of the parking bylaw. There are no maximum requirements for this area, but there are policies and in the bylaw that allow for them to reduce their parking quite substantially, and that's an option that will still remain open to them with at the development permit stage. So they have also submitted a TDM plan, a transportation demand management plan, to enhance other options for transportation to and from the site that would also supplement their parking reduction if they choose to go that route.
Okay, yeah, I was going to actually ask about the sort of transportation management plan, if there's any considerations given the increasing density and is there any need to make any adjustments in terms of the streets and traffic flow in that area? I think because I think the parking access is off the lane, but it can be quite challenging to navigate in that area. So I'm just wondering if you could comment on that.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for the question. So being a downtown site, they do have a mandatory transportation demand management plan requirement. So there's requirements for them to enhance, sustainable mode options on and around their site. So they've posed a fairly comprehensive plan That includes things like enhanced bicycle facilities, as well as like marketing and additional strategies on their site. They're also required to provide, as conditions of rezoning enactment, improvements to the offsite transportation network as well. So that includes things like pedestrian improvements, the widened sidewalk, signal improvements, and then improvements to the lane as well. So it's a fairly comprehensive package that they're providing through the rezoning to improve transportation demand through on and off-site measures.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Fry.
Thanks. And thank you, everyone, for the presentation. I guess this is a question for the developers, but staff could probably weigh in on it as well. I'm zooming in on the UDP comments. And first off, I want to acknowledge that, you know, as a condition of approval, the shared child play areas, which is fantastic and super progressive and probably should have happened a long time ago for a lot of these. But I note that, because kids are kids and let them play all together. But I note, though, that the UDP comments talk about concerns for the dual entrance of strata and social housing, which does not contribute to equality and sense of belonging. And so I'm curious, that was in 2020, what's being done to, have there been any considerations around addressing those UDP comments about equality?
Yeah, I might start, Councillor Fry, and see if Annie or Dan want to chime in. But in terms of the separate entrances, I think what we've heard time and time again from nonprofit operators is that preference to have, you know, distinct airspace parcel to allow for operational and financial autonomy, especially for the nonprofit operators. They get to decide how to finish their spaces and fund it appropriately without having to maybe coordinate with the strata. I think what we've also included in the report and the design development conditions twice is to make sure that that social housing entrance remains prominent through the development permit stage. So opportunities to really enhance it and make it more visible. And yeah, the shared outdoor play space, yeah, we've also heard time and time again the importance of socialization for children and how that matters less in terms of the financial and operational side of mixing that and sharing that with the strata owners and the strata. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I guess, but specifically, what are we doing to, what is this application doing to address those concerns that UDP had about the perception of equality and sense of belonging?
Sure, yeah, we did hear that at the UDP, meeting, and we've responded by ensuring that there are two conditions that appear very prominently in the report to allow them to enhance those spaces, especially with certain design conditions, and also we've also tried to ensure that a condition appears that they are shared in terms of the outdoor play spaces, because we did hear that there was some concern. So
Okay,
I think they appear in the conditions.
Sure, maybe I can, if it's possible, get a sense from the architects
Sure.
how they interpret that and what they anticipate doing to enhance that.
Yes, I think the design that was presented at UDP and as part of the final rezoning reflects the current policy that we were presented with, but the locations of the entrances, although they are not entering in the same door, I think they have quite a bit of merit on their own. One enters on Barclay, the other one's on Thurlow, and they're both quite. They're both nice entrances, and maybe I can ask if Maxime Frappier, the design architect, or Chris Phillips, the landscape architect, have any comments that they would like to present?
Yes, maybe. Thank you, Jeff. I have a quick comment, and then Chris will probably add to this. But the question is very legitimate because we had that in our mind from day one to make sure that we would integrate perfectly the social housing into that project. So not only with the architectural treatment of the facades that are quite, I would say, astonishing, the way that we have been able to integrate that, and I salute the courage of the developer in that aspect as well. But I do think, Jeff, that you have said what needed to be said, is that the two entrances are quite AAA type of entrances. They have a very significant visibility from the streets. And roughly, even though if we really wanted to have this shared space for the kids on the outdoor spaces, we do believe that it's a great way as well to favor a great, I would say, cohabitation with the two type of tenants on the site as well. So I do think that the entrance for the social housing is as great as the one for the market housing. Chris, maybe you have something as well to say?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Phillips. I'm the landscape architect on the project. Just want to mention that we have an outdoor space which has lots of amenity, which both serves the market and social housing.
Sorry, would you be able to speak a little closer to the mic? We're having a hard time hearing you in
Hard
chambers here. Now I'll add some more time to the clock here.
Can you hear me now?
That is
Is
a
that
little
better?
better. Can everyone hear him? Great. Thank you.
I apologize for that. I'm Chris Phillips, the landscape architect. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to mention that the two entrances, as mentioned by Maxime, are, very distinct with street addresses. But most importantly, we have an outdoor space with lots of amenity, both for market and for the rental housing. So there's a place to engage socially for children and families and gathering. So I think that's an important part of the mix conceptually that we've provided in the open space. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are at time. So thank you very much. Councillor Joe?
Okay, very quick question. I think for West End, we really need more childcare spaces over there. So my question is, when the CAC was negotiated, is childcare spaces an option there, or why is off the picture now?
Thanks for that question, Councillor Joe. The site is not really well suited for a childcare facility. We require certain indoor and outdoor amenity space that's contiguous. And typically for a site this narrow, there isn't sufficient outdoor space that could be carefully placed with that indoor space. So we did consider it, though on other sites in the West End, we have seen tower and podium forms that allow for childcare, and we've asked for them, the applicant, to put that there, knowing that we have a childcare deficiency in the West End.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. Seeing no other councillors in the queue, we will now hear from the public. And so if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when prompted by the clerk. And it looks like we just have a couple of individuals on the line. So I go to the first one is withdrawn. The second one is Lindsay Roy. Lindsay, are you on the line? Nope. The second person we have, and I apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce your name, it's Noivi Pinopoulou.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
You're on the line.
Great. It's Naomi Pinopoulou, but yes, nice to meet you. So I have a few questions which are all, that's quite echoey. So I have a few questions, but they're all related to actually more about the livability and the contribution of the building itself. So my one question would be, how do you actually envisioned, how does the city of Vancouver see how this building actually adds to the architectural aesthetic of the building? Because at the moment the butterfly is being built and it's quite similarly to it. So you would have two really big buildings next to each other, which kind of creates the common sense that Vancouver buildings are a bit too similar to each other. So that's my one question. And the other one, of course, would be these two. In the renders, it's not very obvious, but you have the butterfly right next to it, more or less, or in the same kind of area. And both buildings are kind of big constructions. And at the moment, there's so many constructions in the West End that there's a lot of congestion in terms of traffic, and on the weekends as well, because of construction on the weekends. So how does this? How are you envisioning that it's going to be happening in terms of not affecting in that much degree the residents currently in the city. Another question I had, which is more
Sorry,
about the units.
Speaker, this portion of the meeting, speakers aren't able to ask questions. They're asked to keep comments to the merits of the project.
Okay, so my more comments about this project then would be, I saw a few adverts about advertising these newly built where they're starting off the unit is starting off 308 square feet, which I don't see how that's actually livable. So my comment on this is whether it's actually contributing a livable situation in terms of families. When you say family units, is there enough square footage that a family of 4 people could live comfortably? And that is something that my not question, but comments about this building itself as well as everything else. Yeah. And then my other comment as well, last comment was you mentioned about the sunlight in the city. And at the moment, you actually mentioned about that only the shadow goes up to Robson, but then it also affects all the buildings around it because it's such a tall building, which means it deprives the sunlight of the radius of that really, really tall building, which also affects the vegetation and the quality of life of the residents around that building. And that will be my last comment about this building. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream.
Hey, Josh, your line is unmuted.
Hello. Thank you. I wasn't aware that I couldn't ask questions, but I guess I'm just seeking clarification on 2 points.
Sorry, Speaker.
Comment, question.
Sorry, Speaker. Before you get started, can I please get your name?
Josh.
Josh. And Josh, are you a resident of Vancouver?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
So I'm actually a resident of 1060 Barclay Street, which is directly across the street from this planned development. And my question was, first I just wanted to be clear because I got the notification for this meeting in my mailbox, and I thought that this development project included what would be the south side of Barclay Street between Burrard and Thurlow. So I just wanted to clarify, one, that this proposal has nothing to do with the 1040 to 1080 project on the south side. And then secondly, because both of these sound like they're going to be massive projects, which will be disruptive for years in terms of the area. And would this be going on potentially simultaneously with another major project on the other side of Barclay? I didn't realize that I couldn't ask a question, but if so, that may be something to consider in any case, is that directly across the street, there's another super project being planned right now for 1040 to 1080, between Burrard and Thurlow. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Speaker. Hold on one sec. All right. Okay, I'm Lindsay. This is a call for Lindsay Roy on the speakers list. Are you online there? No? Okay. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Awesome. Thank you. All right, third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And since that was the third notice, we will, I would suggest a 5-minute recess to see if any calls have been received after that third call has taken place.
Yes.
Great. Speaker, can I please get your name for the record?
Marcel?
Marcel, thank you very much. And Marcel, are you a resident of Vancouver?
I am.
Great, thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm a resident here on 1060 Alberni Street, and my, I guess, concern was that with the light that was showing, it looked to me the angle that it's based on a summer light hitting Robson Street. And my concern is that currently the Butterfly, the Patina, and these buildings that are going to be built will completely blot out the sun that I receive currently in the sort of like that winter time zone. And then I guess because we're in a smaller building, it's a cost of the development. But that was really my biggest concern was the sunlight seems to me that it's going to be based only on a summertime effect.
Okay, thank you, Marcel. Did you have any other comments?
No, my other only concerns will be, again, with regards to parking, and I think that they should maintain as many parking spots to avoid cars parking on the street and more congestion.
Okay, great.
And that would be about it.
Great. Thank you very much, Marcel.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Have a great night. So, Clerk,
You-
thank you. Clerk, do we have any further speakers?
Just checking. No.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. As few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to the hearing closing comments, asking further questions of staff, team members, and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Thank you. Do staff team members have any closing comments? Thank you. Does council have any questions for the team members? Okay. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I just wanted to, we heard a couple of speakers come with some questions, so just wanted to give them a chance to have those responses heard. So one of them was around other sites adjacent to or near this address that may have significant development or construction happening at the same time, and how we're going to manage those impacts on the neighborhood, or if that is even a concern of staff.
Thanks, Councillor Bly. We did hear from the previous speakers in reference to the Butterfly Tower at 969 Burrard, as well as 1040 Barclay. 969 Burrard is currently under construction, and it's a few blocks. It's about 1 or 2 blocks away. 1040 Barclay is just behind this site. It hasn't reached public hearing yet. It's currently in application. So in terms of timing and construction, you know, it's certainly up to the applicant to determine when that is, when they'd like to advance the construction, but we always ask for them to respect the noise bylaw as well as provide a construction plan over to the city to explain how they're going to manage their construction activities in terms of impacts to adjacent neighbors.
Okay, great. And so then we do sort of our due diligence as the city to overlap that with other ongoing construction projects that have transportation plans that may conflict with those transportation plans?
Certainly. I think I'll ask Rosemary just to confirm that. Rosemary?
Yeah, certainly. Again, Rosemary Draskevich, Senior Transportation Engineer. That's absolutely correct. Every single site, before they come in for construction, pre-construction, they're required to meet with and coordinate their transportation management plans with our engineering staff. And then at that time, staff would review and coordinate with them, again, in reviewing sort of and coordinating with other ongoing construction at the time. And then the applicants and construction teams would secure their appropriate permits required to secure street space if they needed, or any closures, coordinated closures if those are required as well. And then closures of the lane are likely to be prohibited, you know, to maintain access, you know, for existing residents and businesses. So that is all coordinated just prior I believe about 8 weeks prior to construction. That's all kind of done in that due diligence stage.
Okay, great. Quick follow-up to the other speakers. So thank you for that on the construction end. But there were questions on the unit size, and I took a second read through, just scanned, but didn't see the typical table that sort of outlines unit size based on 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom. So do we have line of sight to those details at this time?
Thanks, Councillor Bly. We do. I think the speaker referenced 280 square feet.
Yes, I heard that. And I know we've got a minimum size.
We do.
bylaw, so.
And I can confirm that the proposal currently does not have any studio units. They have 1-bed, 2-bed, and 3-bed. And when we did the calculations, the 1-bed average was about 610 square feet. And our minimum is 398. So it goes from 610 for 1-bed to about 820 for 2 beds, and then around 1,100 average for 3 beds.
And is that the same for social units, social housing units, as it is for strata?
Yeah, that's for the social, actually, sorry. So that's, actually, let me confirm with Annie. I'm pretty sure that's the average for the social.
Okay.
In terms of the strata, we might have a little different figure. Okay.
Thank you, Teen. Annie Mobilis, Senior Housing Planner. I have the minimum requirements per the Social Housing Design Technical Guidelines, but I don't have from the drawing set. So I believe Teen's information is more up to date, and that it's larger than what the minimum requirements would be. So just for illustration, a 1-bedroom for the Social Housing Design Technical Guidelines is on average 500 square feet.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm looking specific to this building. So I
To
think
the
this person was raising concerns regarding that.
Okay, yeah, so the numbers that Teen gave are
Great.
accurate. Thank you.
Yep, okay, that sounds tight, but reasonable with what we've heard. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Carr?
Oh, sorry. Any more questions? Sorry. Councillor Bly actually asked my questions, which were arising from speakers. Thank you, Councillor Bly.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So I will advance that then. Great. So council will now make its decision on this application. Do we have a mover for a recommendation? Great. Thank you, Councillor Fry, seconded by Councillor Carr. It has been moved. Oh, I just said that. Great. Awesome. Is there any debate? Okay. Reminder that any council member whose video, or everyone's here. Sorry. Oh, there's 4 people in the queue. Sorry. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the responses. Well, first of all, the speakers, the presentations, the responses to questions so far in the during the meeting itself. In particular, I think I started off questioning around the cost of social housing. It's always a concern to me. Are we getting the best possible value in terms of the use of dollars to create what's increasingly expensive units of social housing? I really appreciated staff's answer to those questions, and the fact that that the units would probably cost just as much in any other development. This is not a untoward amount of money in these days around the building of social housing. What I appreciated more than anything else, though, was the recognition that the size of these units is so much better than we see in most projects. What was it, 70% family housing? Like, that's incredible. I really, really appreciate that we hear it over and over again at this council table. The units are so small. There's only, the vast majority are just for singles, and these are family units, and we need them in the city. So I really appreciate that piece of the development in particular. I really like the conditions of approval too. There's a lot in there to love in terms of, well, first of all, the design itself is great. Love the near zero GHGs to the building. But I really liked the direction given moving forward, increasing the scale of the public plaza, adding public art into the back plaza, being really clear about not casting shadows on the north side of Robson Street through the design, and I know the sculpting is to do that. Adding benches and substantial planting at the social housing entrance. Some people were concerned about the social housing, and I think those kinds of amenities really make a difference. Green roofs on all the flat roof surfaces, edible plants, and I really love also adding urban agricultural plots. I think food is going to be, and food security is going to be a big issue as climate changes even more drastically. And to consider bioswales, because we are going to have more heavy rain events. So I think they are very much needed in the future. So I think well done on this project.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Councillor Boyle?
Thanks. I won't repeat all of that. I think agree. I'm really glad to see so many family units. Appreciate the full electrification and not reliance on natural gas. I think that's a really important move. And as we saw in the heat dome, the use of heat pumps for cooling too is going to make a big difference for residents in this building. So really glad to see that. I also just wanted to note, we heard from staff that there are opportunities in the next stages if to reduce parking if the applicant so chooses, and considering the location, I would love to see that if possible. 10 stories down into the ground feels like a lot in such a central location, and with the increased availability of car share options that make it easier for people to not each need one per unit or family. So if that's part of the discussion, would certainly be delighted to see us not need to dig so deeply and not include so much parking. But keen to see the social housing and like I asked in questions, interested in the opportunities that might be available in partnership with the province to deepen the affordability here, in recognition that that's really a shared priority between this council and this provincial government. So hope we might be able to see something on that too. Thanks for all the work that's gone into it.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Fry?
Yeah, thanks. I'll be supporting this. I do want to echo Councillor Carr's comments around the affordability of the units, and I really want to thank Dan Garrison for articulating that and giving it that context, because I think that was an important recognition and sort of addresses the reality of like the cost of new housing and more importantly, the cost of land to deliver that new social housing. Also want to commend the architects for assembling a really great team, and the developers, and it's, you know, a fantastic team, beautiful design. And I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness around the shared children's play space. I know it seems like a small thing, but maybe it doesn't seem like it. To me, I think it's really significant. I think it addresses something that we've heard around these chambers in the past many times around, you know, the kind of disparate and lack of connections between the different populations in these large buildings. So I think that is great, and thank you for you know, articulating it in this report. I will also just acknowledge that, you know, this is a lot of change coming to this particular part of the West End, and you know, I want to, you know, I think for folks who have lived in a relatively new building there, in the older Edwardian down there on Barclay that's next door, it represents a big change for folks there, and I want to name that. But I think on the whole, this delivers a lot of really much needed housing for the city of Vancouver, and it's a very handsome building. So I will credit the designers for creating a very nice looking building. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Fry. Councillor Meisner?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just want to say thanks to staff and the applicant and the architects for a great project, echoing what my colleagues have said. I hope this sets a high bar for other projects in the area in terms of the public benefit. It's pretty impressive, you know, exceeded the requirement for social housing, 27% versus, you know, over 25. And the size of the units that was referenced. I think, I live in 550 square feet, one bedroom, and I'd love to have 610 square feet. So I think that's very livable. And also the design of the building, I think, is beautiful and also will fit in with some of the older buildings in the West End. I can see the cues from that in the architecture. So again, seems like a great project and excited to see it come to fruition.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to make a decision on this application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Oh, we already did that. That's what I thought. Okay. And so is there any debate? Pardon? Yeah, see. Okay. Yeah, we're missing am I missing something here? I can just take it to a vote. Right. Great, so now we will take it to a vote, and if you can go on your computers and vote, that would be great. All right, it's unanimous. It's approved. Congratulations. All right, so item number 2, CD-1 rezoning, 5562 to 5688 Manson Street. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 2? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Oak Ridge Multifamily Limited Partnership to rezone 5562 to 5688 Manson Street from residential district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of two 18-story buildings with 392 secured rental units, of which 20% of the floor area is secured as below market rental units and a 37-space childcare facility. A building height of 56 meters and floor space ratio of 6.0 are proposed. Following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing. One piece of correspondence in opposition and 2 pieces of correspondence regarding other aspects related to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Additional speakers will have an opportunity to speak by phone or in person at the end of the registered speakers list. Now we have Brian Wong, rezoning planner, rezoning center, planning, urban design, and sustainability here to present the application.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Wong, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application for the Cambie Corridor Plan. The site outlined in red is located on the east side of Manson Street, between West 39th and 41st Avenues. The site is a half a block and currently developed with 6 detached houses, either vacant or with tenancies of less than 2 years. The site is well served by transit and amenities, with a SkyTrain station, bus service, bikeways, and nearby parks. This proposal is being considered under the Cambie Corridor Plan. Redevelopment is guided by the plan, which anticipates high-density residential at this location. Specifically, the plan allows for residential buildings up to 18 stories if 100% of the residential floor area is rental housing and a minimum of 20% of the floor area is below market rental. And for a tower on podium form with turnkey childcare facility. The policy provides clear direction that an additional partial story above the rooftop is permitted for common indoor and outdoor amenity spaces. The public realm plan also requires buildings to be separated by a mid-block secondary active link. Supportable density is based on urban design and public realm performance. The application was submitted in October 2021 for two 18-story buildings above 6-story podiums. As the policy permits, partial stories are proposed above the rooftops to allow for amenity spaces. A density of 6.0 FSR and a maximum building height of 183 feet is proposed. The proposal also includes 392 rental units, of which 79 units are at below market rates. The North Tower contains a 37-space childcare facility delivered turnkey to the city. Parking and loading is from the lane. The application is compliant with the Canby Corridor Plan with respect to height, density, and form of development. Staff note the podiums are 6 stories instead of the plan's direction for 4 stories. The podiums are supported to allow additional density to accommodate childcare and outdoor amenity areas. It is consistent with the future context of the neighborhood, and rezoning conditions require the upper stories to be set back and overall height lowered to emphasize a 4-story form. There was also expressed support from the urban design panel for the proposed heights. Shown here is the image of the childcare facility on the ground floor of the north building, adjacent to the mid-block secondary active link. The childcare center will be delivered to the city as an airspace parcel. During a future stage, the city works with a nonprofit to tenant and program the space. Council, this is a quick comparison between the below market rental, market rent, and home ownership based on unit sizes. Shown in red, this application is providing below market rents that are more affordable than home ownership. And market rents in this area of the city are typically more affordable than home ownership costs for units of the same size. A total of 49 submissions were received during the virtual open house. Comments were for the density, podium form, neighborhood fit, support for additional rental housing options, childcare, and bicycle spaces. Concerns were related to height, impact on shadowing, and private views. In response, the proposed height of 18 stories aligns with the plan for which additional height can be granted for childcare and rental housing. The 90-foot tower spacing and slender tower form maximizes opportunities for sunlight onto outdoor areas and ensures adequate spacing for residential privacy and views. The proposal will contribute $3.2 million in development cost levies, a public art contribution, and a 37-space childcare delivered to the city as the community amenity contribution. The rental units and below market units will be secured with a housing agreement. This proposal is consistent with the Canby Corridor Plan, and staff support this application subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mark Eman. I'm a principal at DA Architects and Planners. With me tonight is Ken Mahan, who's managing partner of Oak Ridge Multifamily LP, Abo Taheri, president of Mirage Management Group, and L. Johnson with DA Architects and Planners. Mr. Mahan is going to just make a few statements at this time, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions Council may have on the application.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Councilors. We are glad to have been in a position to present our project for rezoning consideration today. We do appreciate all the city staff for their hard work and efforts on this project. With the help of all our professional consultants, including Dr. Tahiri of Mirage Management as development manager of the project, DA Architect, and ITC Construction and their teams. I hope that we can move forward faster from this point on and make this a very successful project for the City of Vancouver and our partners. Thank you, everyone, for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to team members or the applicant team? And please note that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. We have Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, questions probably both to staff and to the applicant, and it's just with respect to the below market rental component of this project. Was there any opportunity to include more than what's proposed? And I recognize the complexity of these pro formas, and there's already the in-kind component of the childcare, but I'm just curious if there was any flexibility to add additional below market units.
Thanks, Councillor Dominato. The policy requires that it's 20% minimum. And when we did the, when the application was brought in, we don't require a pro forma or a CAC analysis because we expect that that 20% below market rental is part of that public benefit or the public benefit package. So we didn't hear that they could do more. In fact, another part of the proposal is that childcare facility. So the below market rental in coordination with the childcare, I think captures any additional potential lift that possibly could be achieved on this site. So,
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, a couple of questions to the applicant. Thank you. There has, in the public comments, I've seen some concern expressed around sort of massing at the street level. And one of the conditions of approval is to explore setbacks above 2 stories. Is that something that you believe is doable in the design?
To set back the top 2 floors, yes. Yes, that's what we intend to do.
Okay, the top 2 floors.
Yes.
Okay. There was concern expressed by also by the public around I think the podium massing. It goes up to 6
stories, yes.
Right.
So the design guidelines do encourage a podium form in this area.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just noting again from the staff report, I'm going to quote directly on page 7. While the podium height is supported, a condition has been applied to explore setbacks for the upper 2 levels of the podium.
That's
So
correct.
Not the, okay.
That's the top 2 floors of the 6th story.
Of the 6 stories, sorry. I had misinterpreted your earlier answer as to being the top of the building. Okay, okay, so that is within the purview of you in terms of.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Another question that also arises out of reading correspondence from the public is their questioning around the public urban agriculture. So can you maybe explain to me what the intention is around exploring urban agriculture?
We are providing, or we intend to provide on the podium, I believe, so the roof of the podium, urban agricultural plots.
Okay, food production.
Food production, yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Great, so we will now hear from the public, and we do have Helen, and sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name, probably Bumim? Bumim? Bum. I am so sorry. Helen, The floor is yours.
Thank you. Mayor Sim and Council, on behalf of the Riley Park South Cambie Community Vision Steering Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the project. And I'm just going to really highlight a few items because you received our correspondence a few days ago, and so I'm not going to read it as you've received it. One item is the rental concept. We see it as a positive aspect of the project, and also an important item, you know, or I can say, yeah, an item, a project for the area, because we are somewhat short of rental facilities. Now, and I guess the planner, Mr. Wong, mentioned something, gave some statistics there on how the rental rates are determined. And I guess we still question, you know, when anytime the word affordability is mentioned, you know, we have to question that because we don't know what it really means. And it has never been clarified at a council meeting that we've attended in the past. The building's height is of concern. We see that it's designated 18 stories for 2 towers. But when we look at the drawings that we saw, we noted that one was a level 19, which gives it a height of 209 feet. So we see this as a 19-story tower. With the elevator housing protruding beyond, we see a few planters there, and that may be it for the tenants. That's not really, you know, agricultural production, and I don't know if it'll even guarantee anything on food security when you look at the community gardens that we have at Riley Park. Another area is a traffic study, and we know that, you know, there's a requirement on part of the city to have a minimal traffic study, and I'm not, you know, going into the details there, but we see this as somewhat remiss and not doing a comprehensive traffic study for the entire area, that is the Cambie corridor. The Oak Ridge Municipal Town Center, which this building is now part of, or this project, I should say, will witness an increase in population density that no one has really discussed. We foresee a concomitant increase in vehicle traffic as a serious concern, regardless of the city's objective of getting residents out of their cars. The limited number of parking spaces being provided is understandable in light of the close proximity to the 41st Express bus and the Canada Line. But we are concerned with an unintended set of consequences of having a low ratio of parking spaces to the number of housing units. We question the city's policy regarding this whole idea of, you know, the minimal number of parking spots for a rental project. And at the same time, if it's self-owned or strata project, we find there are more parking spots being available than actual number of units when we look at the area in the Cambie corridor. So that becomes our concern. In this project, we certainly hope that the parking for all tenants will be on an equal basis. And the other, and a positive note, is the childcare, the 37 spaces, which is a very positive feature, and we know that there is a shortage within the area. And we do hope also that the designated outdoor space for the childcare will be available to the tenants when the childcare is not in operation, because there is, again, a shortage of outdoor space within the area. The 35% designation for family units is acceptable, but the size of the bedrooms, which we found difficult to merely, it wasn't as clear as we'd like it to be. Another aspect is that for future tenants in the area, and when this is advertised, there is no elementary school close by. There is no elementary school in the area between 41st and King Edward, between Oak and Cambie. There's a secondary school, but no elementary. And the only elementary is a Francophone program, which very few people in the area probably qualify for.
Great, Alan. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Time's up.
You're at time.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person we have is Chris. Is Chris on the line?
I am, Mayor.
Great, thank you, Chris. Sorry, may I ask you, are you a resident of Vancouver?
I am.
Thank you very much. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'm calling in to say I oppose this application. There are several reasons, mainly to do with the application appearing to not be in compliance with the Canby Corridor Plan and not fulfilling the vision or intent of the plan. One big issue is the use of podiums. In the Canby Corridor Plan, where the two types of tower typologies are defined, it limits towers on podiums to the urban edge at parks or on shopping streets. Manson Street is neither at the edge of a park or on a shopping street, so it's difficult to understand why podiums are allowed. I could find no explanation or reasons in the referral report of why podiums are allowed here when this site is neither on the edge of a park or a shopping street. And how does podiums so close together meet the vision of the plan of having lots of open space or follow the Kerrisdale model, which this area's guidelines were based on? Even if podiums were allowed, the guidelines say podiums are to be 4 stories in height throughout the area, not 6 stories, except if the building is going up in one of the few places on 41st Avenue. It's very difficult to understand why 6-story podiums are acceptable here. The referral report never adequately addresses this deviation, and the explanation given is flawed as it does not appear consistent with the vision and intent of the Canby Corridor Plan. So why would 6-story podiums be allowed here when they're only contemplated for certain spots on 41st? And how does their use fit with the principles of the Canby Corridor Plan of maximizing open space and minimizing sunlight? Next, the Canby Corridor Plan is pretty clear that tower separation is to be 27.4 meters or 90 feet. The Canby Corridor Plan is also clear on where to measure it, at 18.3 meters or 60 feet up from the ground. That's somewhere between level 6 and level 7 on this design, where the separation is actually only about 10 meters or 33 feet. This deviation from the guidelines is never directly addressed in the referral report. And why not? It's important as it relates to the principles of the Canby Corridor Plan of maximizing open space and minimizing sunlight. And at what height and where is the separation being measured at in the referral report? How does that choice fit with the vision of the plan? And how much does it limit the building of the towers on adjacent streets? The last major compliance issue is to do with the child care facilities. The city needs more child care facilities, and the Canby Corridor Plan is clear that to get 3 extra stories on a tower on podium, there has to be child care facilities in that tower. Tower B is 18 stories, but there are no child care facilities in the tower. And again, no explanations in the referral report. So why was 3 extra stories given on Tower B when there are no child care facilities in Tower B? Also, shadowing could be a big problem for the outdoor child care facilities. Child care design guidelines say natural light is important, and there should be direct sunlight either on the morning or afternoon of the winter solstice. That's the criteria to be met. But obviously there will be shadows from the podiums themselves in the afternoon. But it also looks like the tall Oak Ridge Tower closest to 41st and Canby will shadow the area for part of the morning on the winter solstice. Plus, if the tower was to go up on Ash Street, and even though it met the separation criteria, it would probably also shadow the child care area in the morning, which I assume means that such a tower with all its rental units couldn't be built, at least if the child care guidelines are to be taken seriously and followed. Again, these issues are not addressed in the referral report. Does the outdoor area meet the child care design guideline requirement? What evaluation was done on whether the child care area is affected by other buildings shadowing, especially the Oak Ridge Towers? And how might this affect the viability of a future tower on Ash Street? And there's also the issue of the proposal orphaning the 2 lots to the north. Theoretically, yes, there are building types that could be built on each lot, but I've been told the project economics are very unlikely to work out. Plus, some building types, like the alphabet type, which the Canby Corridor Plan says is the preferred type from 4 to 6 stories, look like they couldn't be built on a single 56-foot lot and meet the Canby Plan requirements because the entry courtyard would distort the front of the building. Remember, the Canby Corridor Plan says that sites can be orphaned if they can't be developed. Not just that something can't be built there, but what that could be built there doesn't work in relation to something like building massing, shadowing, or in the project economics don't work. So was any consideration or evaluation done on not just the design's viability, but the project economics of providing affordable housing on the 2 left behind lots? Can each be developed, or is planning assuming that they will be consolidated? What justifies that assumption? Given these unanswered questions and more on other things like the floor-to-floor height, I believe there are valid, significant reasons that this application is not in compliance with the Canby Corridor Plan. I'd also like to say that if I believe that if Council approves this application, it will set a precedent that the guidelines for the Canby Corridor Plan don't have to be followed. Obviously, that will mean there will be no consistency in what gets built. And that consistency will create a lot of uncertainty for both residents and developers. That slows the building process and makes building affordable housing more expensive. It also frustrates developers.
Sorry,
and
Chris,
residents.
we're at time.
Okay.
But I'd like to thank you for your comments. Thank you very much. Okay, if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when prompted by the clerk. We have no speakers on the line to provide comments on this item. No. Okay. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. So read it out one more time. Okay. Third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And now I suggest we take a 5-minute recess to see if any calls come in. Already started again. Clerk, are there any calls, people online? Yes, there is. Caller, you're on the line. May I please get your name?
Nathan Davidovich.
Sorry, what was your name?
Nathan
Oh,
Davidovich.
Nathan, how are you tonight? Great, and I believe you are a resident of Vancouver.
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. You have the floor, Nathan.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I had to call because I do support the previous two speakers from Riley Park, South Canby Neighborhood Association. The Canby Corridor Plan is a good example why previous councils have failed to provide affordable rental apartments in Vancouver. The Phase 3 of the Canby Corridor Plan was rushed through by Vision 1.0, Mayor, Gregor Robertson, in 2018. It does not relate to Phase 1 and 2 of the Canby Corridor Plan that were different. We will end up with a bad urban design form all over the area of Canby and Oak Street and 41st Avenue. You just look at one block to the east at 41st and Nash, where the Oak Ridge Church applied under the Phase 1 and 2 of the Canby Corridor Plan and were only allowed to build a building of 7-story height. Now, one block to the west, 41st and Manson, because it's under Phase 3 of the Canby Corridor Plan, they're allowed to build up to 18-story, and they're actually exceeding what, according to the previous speakers, what is allowed under Phase 3 of the Canby Corridor Plan. Mr. Mayor, as a new mayor and council, even though you have 6 councillors on the former council, you can make any changes you wish. The new mayor of Langley Township has struck down lots of policies and developments of the previous council. You can do the same thing. You're not abide by anything that the previous council has done, especially the Canby Corridor Plan, which is only a plan. It's not a bylaw. It's not an official community plan. It's just a plan that could be changed any day, any time, And the provincial government has announced various housing incentives to municipalities, and they have big funding. But, unless the city has proper plans, then the likelihood of you receiving some of this money it won't be done for Vancouver. The Minister of Housing, Ravi Coloni, will give the money to Burnaby.
Nathan,
Yeah.
can you please keep your comments to the merits of the project?
Yeah, well, the merit is that it's unfortunately under Phase 3 of the Canby Corridor Plan, and it's just there's just a whole bunch of problems. I mean, have you been to the 41st Oak Ridge 41st station? We had no streetlights there for over a month, if you believe it or not. This whole area is run down, and nobody seems to care. It's something has to be done, like the previous speakers have said about the traffic and transportation in that area. You need a proper study, which we don't have. So, there is all kinds of problems, and that's why I support the previous two speakers. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. Are there any additional speakers? Okay, as few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to the hearing, move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of team members and to make a decision. Okay, does the applicant have any closing comments? Thank you very much. Do our team members have any closing comments?
Staff have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for the team members? Oh, here we go. Councillor Carr, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to pursue the question with you that was raised by a member of the public, or several members of the public, regarding consistency of this project with the plan, in specific regarding a high podium in an area that the plan does not call for high podiums. Wonder if you could just outline for me why you believe that that's acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor. The development planning team will answer that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Omar Al-Jubouri, development planner. So the policy says for this site and surrounding context, the buildings will take two forms, one being a tower up to 18 stories, and where there's no tower, mid-rise buildings will take 4 to 6 stories. As my colleague Brian has mentioned, that given that the adjacent buildings for the mid-rise buildings would be 4 to 6 stories, an increase of up to 6 stories for the podium to support childcare and below market rental is supported, given that it would fit within the context. Noting that the applicant has already set back the upper 2 stories and staffing. Have included conditions to further reduce the presence of the 6-story podium.
Okay, you just said that the applicants already agreed to set back the upper 2 stories of the podium, the 5th and 6th stories?
The design is already set back.
Oh.
Staff is asking them to set it back further on the north and the south, and explore other visual ways to reduce the presence.
Okay. Any reason why the original plan didn't anticipate this in terms of a potential? If the surrounding area, as you say, has got 5 to 6 stories anyway, I'm just curious about that. I know the plan's quite old at this point.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. The rationale in terms of why it didn't already outright allow for 6-story podiums, I'm actually not totally sure. The plan was developed a few years ago, and I don't have any insight into that currently.
Right. Okay. Appreciate that explanation.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Actually, Mayor, my question was asked and answered, so if there's no further questions, I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. It's been moved by Councillor Kirby-Young and seconded by Councillor Boyle. Is there any debate?
I can speak to it briefly. I'm on the queue.
Good.
I can speak to it briefly.
There you go.
Yeah, in quick form, I think that these stats are becoming really well known to council and throughout the city. 52% of households in the city of Vancouver are renters, but if you look at net new households into the city, it exceeds north of 60% coming in. And people, a large proportion of people simply cannot afford to buy. So this is much needed rental housing. And it does provide a social benefit. If you look at those rents for the 20% of below market units, there's hundreds of dollars a month in savings for an individual compared to market rate in the West Side average, which is, it makes a huge difference for somebody being able to get in and stay in housing. And this is secured rental tenure of housing where somebody knows it's a purpose-built building and they have some confidence that they'll be able to make their home there for a period of time. And so I think that's particularly important. A lot of the original Oak Ridge Canby plan was predicated on a lot of strata. And we're seeing some shift now into rental, and I think that's a good thing in terms of having some diversity of housing choices in neighborhoods. And this is, as we said, very close to transit. I think one of the other things that we have learned is that when you have close proximity to transit, and not all homeowners are created equal, some need access to vehicles and some do not. And we often see with a number of rental buildings, and as we have different rental proponents coming through, that we're seeing a lower use of cars than we might intuitively think is the case. Sometimes in younger demographics, when people are using car share, sometimes they're choosing not to own. Sometimes it's a means or affordability aspect. So I think those are important considerations in terms of the fact that there is transit access here. But all that said, we need this housing, and we particularly do need rental housing. We have a dire shortage of the city with typically around a 1% or less vacancy rate, which makes it really tough when you're out there competing to find somewhere to hang your hat. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue, I would like to suggest that we put this to a vote. All right, well, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Awesome. Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn. Not all at once. Seconder, awesome. All in favor, say yay. All opposed, say nay. Carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.